So today we have a proclamation that we'll start off with. We have 4 items on our consent agenda, 1 regular agenda item, then we'll do appointments, general public comment, commissioner and administrator miscellaneous, and that will be our meeting. So we'll start with the domestic violence awareness proclamation. Commissioner Geruso, Commissioner Thelman, would you like me to read this, or anybody really want to step up and read this? I'm glad to.
It's all yours, Commissioner Kelly.
Thank you, Commissioner Geruso. Whereas nearly 20 people per minute are physically abused by an intimate partner, 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men will be affected by domestic violence. And between 30 to 50% of trans and non-binary folk will experience interpersonal violence in their lifetime. Whereas Douglas County places the utmost value upon the health and welfare of all of its citizens and strives to provide a safer and healthier community. And whereas domestic violence includes verbal, emotional, economic, sexual, and physical abuse, and all forms of abuse can carry long-term physical and mental health implications. And whereas the effects of domestic violence reach far beyond its impacts on survivors and abusers, causing disruption in community schools, places of work and worship, and neighborhoods. And whereas community engagement and recognition of the costs associated with domestic violence have led to innovative partnerships between local government and health and wellness organizations, which can significantly raise awareness of the public health effects of domestic violence. And whereas during October 2020, the Willow Domestic Violence Center works in partnership with local agencies, businesses, organizations, and groups to sponsor and promote Domestic Violence Awareness Month for community-wide attention on survivors and their children, and to promote support of shelters and community programs. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of County Commissioners of Douglas County, Kansas proclaim the month of October 2020 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in Douglas County, and urges the community to speak out against domestic and sexual violence, urges its citizens to support and assist survivors of its heinous crimes, urges community leaders to hold offenders accountable, to make prevention efforts a priority by hosting events, creating policies at school and work, and supporting and participating in programs designed to reduce and eventually eliminate domestic violence as a societal problem. Adopted this 14th day of October, 2020. I believe we have Will Averill here who would like to say a few words. Will?
Thank you. I just wanted to start by saying what a year it's been for all of us, and it's been for the Willow Domestic Violence Center a time of unprecedented challenges. And so this particular Domestic Violence Awareness Month is really, to my mind, the most important one that I've been around for and I've been a participant in. What we've seen nationally is an increase in domestic violence due to the pandemic. First, stay-at-home orders, which isolated survivors with their abusers, and continued difficulties with group living and complying with public health regulations. And I want to take a moment to thank the county for, first of all, for facilitating, county staff and county commissioners for facilitating the distribution of the CARES money, which allowed ourselves, and I know several other organizations, to do the best we could to keep anyone from having to be without a home during this pandemic, which quintessentially could be a death sentence. Thanks to that funding and thanks to that money, we were able to move all of our survivors who were in shelter in a group living situation, which was untenable, into private apartments and other living arrangements and hotels, and so including getting some of them to homes out of state. It was very helpful to do that, and it really has made a difference. So I wanted to say a huge thank you for that. One project this year that we've done is working with the Kansas University Engineering Department and their SELF program to put together a brochure on the public health costs of domestic violence. We often refer to domestic violence as a strictly personal and family issue, but the effects go far beyond that and cost nationally $8.3 billion a year in lost workplace productivity, sick days, and other costs related to those incidents. We have broken it down to a local level, and I would welcome the opportunity to speak with the commissioners at some point and talk over this document. But what we did find through this is that $1 of shelter funds is the equivalent to $9 of emergency and crisis funds, including first response, including emergency services, including hospital stays, and including courts and housing. So we can make a significant difference going forward in policy through prevention and through education. This Domestic Violence Awareness Month, we are having a series of activities which start with Rachel Louise Snyder, who is an author who's written a book called No Visible Bruises, which we're presenting a conversation with her on Wednesday, October 21st. And then there's a series of panels about varying programs that the Willow does, and also other information is available on willowdvcenter.org/DVAM 2020. So I hope you'll all go take a look at the website, kind of get an idea of what we're doing this year to raise that awareness. And I really hope that we can continue to work on future partnerships and policy, bearing in mind the unique circumstances that survivors of domestic violence and human trafficking face on a regular basis, particularly in light of the current situation. I'd like to close by just saying thank you again, and I really appreciate you taking the time and reading the proclamation.
Thank you, Will. Appreciate that. Well, if you would, I'm just curious. We heard about Willow's large award from, I believe it was the state this year, and I think there was some miscommunication about what that meant. Can you share a little bit about that with us? Do you know what I'm talking about? Is that making some sense?
I'm absolutely familiar with that. I think there is some miscommunication in the way that was presented. Those awards are part of the grant funding packages that we receive on a yearly basis. They seem like they were made out that they were new awards and that it's like we've gotten this massive windfall of funding, when in fact those are grants that is federal funding moved through a state level, which we have counted on for a number of years. And in fact, compared to what we had asked for and how we'd hoped to develop forward, we actually received kind of less than our normal operating budget procedure. So while it gave the appearance of a large windfall, it was actually a slight reduction that we are attempting to kind of compensate for moving forward in order to continue to provide those uninterrupted services, which again are so important in this time during the pandemic.
Thanks, Will. I knew there was some misunderstanding about that, and since we had you here today, I just thought it might be helpful to explain that to the public, because that was unfortunate the way that was presented. It just seemed inaccurate to me. So.
Yeah, it definitely, we had a good chat with Lauren at the Journal World, and the Journal World did print a further explanation of those funds, which is available online if anybody wants to kind of follow how that turned out. But the initial article was much bigger than the retraction, so I appreciate a chance to kind of go over that again.
Thanks. Really appreciate all you all are doing out there at the Willow, and all those groups that are working against domestic violence in our community. Commissioners, anything else on this before we move on to our consent agenda?